What is up, everybody? Doomwake here again with another Death Shadow video in the modern format. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I know that in the previous videos we had played some with a little bit of more of a prowess variant, some with a shadowless with a white splash. Today we're just kind of going back to our roots, if you will, kind of playing the traditional, tried and true, just straight red-black shadow. And I like to call this no nonsense shadow. You know, there's not a lot of bells and whistles with what we're doing here. Just a lot of the cards that have been proven over the past couple of months within the archetype, as well as Bomat Courier. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm never leaving home without Bomat Courier. I will die on that hill. I know that a lot of people prefer Soulscar Mage or other one drops, assorted one drops, but I still firmly believe that Bomat Courier is where you want to be in this deck. For reasons I've stated before, but just to go over it quickly, it just allows you to. It's just another threat that kind of has to be answered immediately. Because you have a very low curve and a low land count, you can pretty easily empty your hand pretty quickly. You don't really have a lot of expensive cards. Most of your cards cost 1 mana, and you can. Things like Mishra's Bauble get out of your hand pretty quickly. So not only is it just an early threat that they have to answer, because you can empty your hand so fast and you have the ability to get a lot of value off of it, it's also something you can recur with Luris. It's also a 1-mana haste creature, which makes your turn 2 Scourges better. Just everything about the card, I think, I will bring that to my grave if I have to. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is stuff that you may have seen before. The only difference in the mana base is that we cut the Aghanim's Awakening for an extra fetch land. The reasoning behind that is, if you look at it from a damage perspective, Aghanim's Awakening, pay 3 life when it enters the battlefield. Fetch Shock, essentially the same thing, pay 3 life. The main difference is that when you have Kroxa in your deck, especially because we have one in our main deck and we have a second one in our sideboard, that's something I want to lean on heavily in the post-board configurations. It's just an extra card in your graveyard, which with the math on Kroxa, sometimes that really matters, especially when you get to the point where you're lurising and you're casting spells from your graveyard that you don't want to exile with Kroxa. Just having that extra card can really matter. And I really never cast Aghanim's Awakening, the front half, all that often anyways. It's more of a pipe dream, something that you have the ability to do and you can threaten it, but it rarely ever comes up. So I think, and also the extra fetch land, again, never can have enough fetch lands when you have 4 Mishra's Bauble in your deck. Just the ability to, bauble yourself. If it's a card you don't want, fetch it away, and then you get a fresh draw step. It's essentially like scrying 1. Just more card selection, things like that, just to help smooth your draws out, which is really important at times. And then everything else pretty stock, for Bauble, Shadow, Push, Thoughtseize, Bolt. Again, we went over the Bomat Courier, Swiss Spear and Bomat, I think, are your 2 best 1-drops. We still have our 1 Seal of Fire to go with the Luris. I've seen some people omit the Seal of Fire, but I'll never cut it. It's largely free to play the first copy, and there are some games where you put Luris into play, and it's, just something that, it's such a unique effect. I think it's always worth playing the first Seal of Fire. And then again, I went over the Kroxa. I know that some people don't play the Kroxa. I just like having an extra creature in my main deck, just for games where they have a lot of removal, and you may feel like you're a little threat light. It's also really good against the other Fatal Push decks because game 1 they usually don't have a way to exile it. They don't really have, like in the Mirror, for example. As you can see in our deck, there's not a single thing game 1 that would exile this. So it can be good in the Mirror if games kind of play out like that. So we're going to try one of those in our main deck, along with a Kolaghan's Command. I'm pretty high on this card right now. There's a lot of Stoneforge decks going around. Kolaghan's Command is just one of the best possible cards you could cast against turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic. They play Stoneforge, put in the Batterskull, you play Kolaghan's Command, clean everything up. Nice easy 2-for-1 there. It's more like a 1-for-1, essentially, because they got a card out of the Stoneforge, but just being able to kill Batterskull. Again, also against the other Fatal Push decks, you can recur Shadows and Scourges, which is really nice. Even against combo decks. Just sometimes the combo decks are really about having a very finite number of resources in their hand, and sometimes just making them discard a card. especially combined with Thoughtseize and Kroxa, can really just, hamper their ability to kill you. And then we still have our two-teamer battle rages. I've debated on cutting TBR at points, but I think it is a necessary evil, just given the speed of the modern format. It's really not the best card against decks that have removal spells, like decks with a lot of interaction. Think the Uro Piles, the Shadow Mirrors. I really don't like TBR in a lot of those matchups, but there are a lot of Oops All spells, Goblin Charbelcher, Ad Nauseam, things like that you really need to be able to end the game as soon as possible. And Modern's always going to be like that, so it's almost a necessary evil at this point. If I had my choice and there weren't all of those decks running around, I would happily cut TBR, but it's, again, just something that you kind of have to you just kind of have to deal with it. You have to play your TBRs as much as you don't want to, and I really don't want to. But and then again, our first Scourges, obviously, and then the other notable difference. I'm trying to think of how long ago this really started. I want to say it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Ghoul Dukat, Daniel G, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, on Twitter, had posted a list, a Death Shadow list with, I can't remember if he started with 1 or 2 Night's Whisper. It might have been 2 that he started with. And in the flex slots previously, which I believe that we used to have, I want to say like a Cling to Dust and maybe an extra creature or something. And I tried it. I was a little skeptical at first because it's 2 mana. 2 mana in this deck doesn't seem like a lot, but again, when you're trying to double and triple spell constantly and keep up the tempo, and make sure you maintain pressure on your opponent, this could be a liability. But I tried it, and ever since I tried it, I've never cut below 2 copies. It's been really good for me, just the ability to it's essentially a 2-for-1, right? But it's almost like it's more than that, because you're enabling your Death Shadows and Scourges potentially. So it feels like it's almost, at times, it's almost a 3-for-1, which is just insane, and it's cheap enough. Like, obviously, I would prefer to find a 1-mana card, but if it was 1 mana, draw 2, lose 2, obviously that we can't have that. That would be too good. So we kind of take what we can get there. But it's really nice that you can kind of curve it out with Swift Spear. In the Uro matchups, sometimes just having a 2-for-1 and just trying to outgrind them. Sometimes the games are about that. And there are definitely matchups where you have to cut it. Like, it's not great against the combo decks and the fast decks, but in the Shadow Mirror especially, just having another 2-for-1 is really good. So there aren't a ton of matchups where I think this card is a liability, but it's good enough against the Uro decks, the Shadow Mirrors, and things of that nature that I think it is worth playing 2 copies. And I've been really, really impressed with it so far. And that's the other biggest addition. And then moving on to the sideboard, you'll notice that there's a lot of 3-ofs. And there's kind of a concept behind this. So a lot of shadow lists you'll see like 1 Rain of Gore, 1 Kozilek's Return, 2 Soul Guide Lantern, 1 Spellbomb, 1 this, 2 that, 1 this, you know what I mean? And at least, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. The theory behind it is, I want to find what my worst matchups are, right? And I think the 2 that come off the top of my head are Heliod Combo and Oops All Spells. Just the Oops All Spells, because they are incredibly fast, and they also have Leyline of Sanctity, which means that your Thoughtseizes are blanked. You have a lot of dead removal game 1. One of the worst matchups. And then Heliod Combo, because they have Heliod, which is a permanent you can't really interact with in the battlefield. They have Auriok Champion, which is rough for you, and they can also just sometimes cast a fast Collected Company and just kind of outgrind you there, because they also have Skyclave Apparition, which is a nice clean answer for your Shadows and Scourges. So I think those are 2 of the weaker matchups. And the theory behind not messing around with a bunch of 1-ofs is that, again, I figure out what my worst matchups are, find the cards that are not only the best against my worst matchups, but also have flexibility in terms of when I can bring them in. and just try and max out on all of those cards. Now, I'm still going to play the 1 Croaksa and the 1 Kakemin because I really value this having going up to more of a grindy plane in the mirror match. But you'll notice, compared to previous lists, the most biggest omission is Blood Moon, and I've been asked this a couple of times on Twitter over the past couple of days. And the omission of Blood Moon has a lot to do with the fact that Reign of Gore is just a very, very good card against the Omnath and Uro decks. If you can play this on turn 2 and stick it, obviously they have answers for it, so they have some number of Aether Gusts and Celestial Purges. They can remove it from the battlefield. It's not like they can't kill it. But when it's in play, they can't really cast Omnath or Uro. I mean, they can cast Omnath, but they don't really want to play lands into the Reign of Gore if they can't remove it. So it essentially, if it's in play, it's almost as if you have a Meddling Mage on both Uro and Omnath at the same time. And when you have that type of effect, they have to play the game so differently. They have to use a lot of their resources, if they don't already have an answer to it, they have to use a lot of their early resources to be able to dig and try and find a Celestial Purge. And in that time frame, you can just, develop your own game plan, Thoughtseize them a couple of times, maybe play a threat or two, and kind of go from there. It buys you a lot of time because they have to answer it. And then it's also obviously the best thing you could do against the Heliod decks, again, because it shuts off their combo. It makes Auriok Champion very awkward. Auriok Champion is a May ability, that is true. But it just makes it so it kind of shuts off Auriok Champion, turns off Heliod. A lot of their more powerful cards against you, it basically just kind of culls all of them. So I think that Omnath is not a horrendous matchup, but it's probably slightly unfavorable, I would say. And Heliod is a horrendous matchup. So I think that's why you'll see 3 Reign of Gore here as opposed to some lists play 1 or 2. I just want to play the quote-unquote full 3. I don't think you could ever play 4. And this is also kind of the reason why I cut Blood Moon, because I think Reign of Gore is good enough against Omnath and Uro decks that you don't really need Blood Moon against them anymore, because that was the whole theory behind Blood Moon in the first place, is that we wanted to find something that was just very potent against the Uro decks, that, Blood Moon's a card you can also bring in other matchups. But obviously the awkward part about Blood Moon is we always lost access to Lurrus, which did come up from time to time. And now that I've realized how good Reign of Gore is against the Uro decks, you'll see that we just don't need Blood Moon anymore. We have Reign of Gore and Soul Guide to deal with Uro, and I think that's enough against the Uro decks. So you'll see an omission of Blood Moon here, and the nice thing about not playing Blood Moon is we get to go back to Cleansing Wildfire, which makes our Oops All Spells matchup a lot better, because while Blood Moon is something I would probably bring in against Oops All Spells, if you're on the draw, Blood Moon is probably never going to be good enough. There are some games where maybe a turn 2 Wildfire also might not be good enough, but there's a much smaller time frame that they give you when you're on the draw. You never have time for Blood Moon. You sometimes have time for Wildfire. So it at least improves your percentages on the draw, and on the play it can be pretty backbreaking. They can't really do a whole lot on turn 1 without Simian Spirit Guide, so if they just play land go, you just get a free Stone Rain, draw a card. So you really improve your matchup there. And then, again, with the Kozilek's returns, as always, kills Auriok Champion, good against creature decks. It's humans, Heliod, anything with Auriok Champion, you would want to bring this in. That's kind of self-explanatory, but just kind of wanted to go over how this sideboard, the way I constructed it and why I constructed it the way I did. And then rounding out, obviously, we have our second Kakemin and our second Croaksa. Again, cards that I'll really never leave home without for the Shadow Mirrors and things like that. So yeah, that is the deck list. I hope you enjoyed kind of that overview of why the card choices are the way they are. And I will see you back in just a little bit for round number 1. All right, we are back here for round number 1 of our Red-Black Shadow League. We are on the draw. We'll show our Lurrus. Take a look and see what we have here. So a bit of a land-heavy hand, but I think in general, on the draw, I think this is going to be okay. That's close. Kind of relying pretty heavily on this Fatal Push, and now thinking about it again, we don't really have the capability of playing a shadow terribly fast. Like, I guess the ideal curve is Bowmat on 1, push on 2, shadow crack Bowmat on 3. Alright, I'm going to try it. I'd much prefer this hand on the play, but I think it's close. Let's see what we are up against. Okay, well, wish I mulliganed. This matchup is not great. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And we have essentially a mulligan in our hand because this Fatal Push is never going to find a target. Well, it'll find a target on the turn that we lose, but... Okay. Well, this is why we play best 2 out of 3 games. And we have some okay stuff in the sideboard. I mean, we're almost 100% to lose this game. I can't possibly imagine them not killing us next turn. Yeah, it doesn't help drawing 2 lands. I'll say that. But, yeah, not great. I think opponent kept 7, too. No, they mulliganed to 6. But I expect a Mana Source, followed by a Balustrade Spy, followed by a Concession. There's a Mana Source. There's the Spy. Okay, game 2. We want Wildfires, we want Lanterns. I don't want my slower cards. Dismember's bad. Push is bad. So I'm short 2 cards in this matchup. I may have to keep in some number of these cards. I don't really know if Reign of Gore actually does all that much. It only stops Creeping Chill. But it only stops the life gain. We still take the damage from Chill. And I guess if our opponent is at 12 or less life and they have all 4 Creeping Chills in their deck, they can't go off because... Well, actually, no. Creeping Chill is a May, isn't it? Let me just take a look at Creeping Chill real quick. I think it might actually be a May, if I remember correctly. It is a May. Okay, yeah. So Random Gore doesn't do anything because they would just say no to the Creeping Chills. I guess we're just going to leave in 2 Kolaghan's Commands because they have a bunch of mana rocks. And, I mean, none of these other cards really have text. So, alright. We'll go ahead and submit that. Be able to play for game 2. We have a Thoughtseize, which leads me to believe I think we should keep this hand. Can even bobble myself on turn 1. If it's a card I don't want, I can shuffle Thoughtseize. If it's a card I want to keep, I can always Canyon, play Bowmat. I mean, Sand's not the fastest, but we do have a Thoughtseize. Guess we kind of have to hope they don't have a Leyline of Sanctity. There's not a lot we can do about that anyways. I think when you're on the play, especially with a Thoughtseize, you don't have to mulligan as aggressively to a Soul Guide Lantern. But it is possible we should be looking for that card more heavily. Alright, so opponent kept 6, right? Yep, opponent kept 6. Let's fire off a Bauble, see what we're working with. Say Bloodstained Mire. I don't want to draw that. So now we're just going to Thoughtseize them. And I would rather lead on Thoughtseize. The only reason I was talking about playing Bowmat is if the card was good. Like if there was a Soul Guide Lantern on top, I would have just kept it. And not played Thoughtseize this turn. So they have... Let's expand their hand so I can get a better look at it. So they have 2 lands. A Pentad Prism, 2 combo pieces, and a Natural State. So I think there's... Kind of depends on how we want to play this game. Kind of want to just try and slow them down and take the Pentad Prism. and hope that I can maybe Night's Whisper into another Thoughtseize and a Soul Guide, so then I can Thoughtseize this and play Soul Guide Lantern. I could take their land, which isn't unreasonable, but they have a lot of mana sources in their deck. And this is essentially worth 2 mana sources. So I think it makes the most sense to take Prism here. It is close. And I wouldn't fault somebody for taking one of the lands there either, because that is another consideration. Alright, they play the Mauling. Same thing as last turn. I'm going to end up casting Night's Whisper here to dig a little bit deeper to try and find more interaction. But I can at least bobble first, see if it's something we want. Polluted Delta, I do not want that. So we'll go ahead and shuffle. Cast our Night's Whisper. Hopefully, let's say hopefully find some interaction, but we found some lands. Okay, alright, that's not the worst draw in the deck. The nice thing about taking Pentat Prism is now they don't have green mana, so. Alright, so I would like to thin my deck, because I really don't want to draw any more lands. So I'm going to crack first. I'm going to Wildfire their black mana. Again, black mana is always more important because their combo cards are black. They're going to float a mana, that's fine. They could have a Vendetta. Maybe that's why they floated black mana. I'm still going to cast my Bowmat here. I think it's worth it. Obviously, they could have... Sometimes they sideboard Vendetta or Fatal Push, but... It could also just be a pump fake floating. There's no reason for them not to float mana, you know? Alright, there's green mana, which is pretty good for them. Natural State, Informer, Balustrade Spy, 2 unknowns. Got to kind of think about the next couple of turns and how they're going to play out here. So I think the level 1 play is just play Soul Guide, put Lurrus in hand, attack for 1, say go. Which isn't unreasonable. The question is that now we have to ask ourselves, is that worth it? Do we want to sacrifice a Canyon to try and draw a Death Shadow or a Scourge of the Skyclaves to put a little more pressure on them? Potentially another Cleansing Wildfire or a Thoughtseize as well. Like, we have a lot of cards that we're looking for. I guess the nice thing about playing Lantern is if we draw Thoughtseize, what we can do is we'll have 5 mana, so we'll have the Lantern in play, right? Assuming they only have 1 Natural State, we Thoughtseize them. They likely cast Natural State on the Soul Guide in response. Thoughtseize resolves, we take something. Now we have 4 mana, we go land, or we have 4 mana, we cast Lurrus, recast the Soul Guide, and now we say go with the Soul Guide in play, and they don't have a Natural State anymore. So I think I'm going to lean towards that, because it is higher upside if we draw a Thoughtseize. For our turn, if we end up having to, let's say, crack a Sunbaked Canyon and then draw the Thoughtseize off of that, it's a lot worse. Because then we can't Lurrus and replay the Lantern. But I think this is where I want to go. We'll pass the turn. The nice thing about playing Lantern this turn is if they have Simian Spirit Guide, they can't combo this turn. So we do get a little bit of reprieve there. Alright, they did find another mana source. So we still know about 2 combo pieces, a Natural State, and 2 unknown cards, excuse me. I have a feeling that's not going to be good enough. So I think what we're going to have to do here is attack with Bowmat. And I think we're just going to have to sack it. Ooh, there is a neat little trick here that I'll show you what we can do. We can actually fetch... Oh, I'm going to swap here. We can fetch, and we get to find out exactly what cards are under our bow mat. Okay, so... Count lands first, because those are the easiest to figure out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There is no lands under this bow mat, all spells. Thoughtseizes, nope. There is 3 Thoughtseizes here. Wildfires, nope. There is a Bolt. Death Shadow, no. Scourge, no. Night's Whisper, no. No Soul Guides either. So it's a Bolt and what? A Bauble. Yeah, Bolt, Bauble, and Swift Spear. Bolt, Bauble, Swift Spear, huh? That's not going to be good enough. Well, assuming they have a Mana Source, we are going to lose this game. Unless we crack Sunbaked Canyon and hit another Soul Guide Lantern. Because then we can just say go with 2 lanterns in play. They can only blow up one of them. Bolt, Swift Spear, Bauble. Those are the 3 cards under Bowmat. Which, I mean, we can go play Death Shadow, crack Bowmat. It's just not going to be good enough. So I'm going to sack the Sunbaked Canyon and just try and find another Soul Guide. Well, guess we can just hope they don't have a Mana Source. Alright, your turn. Yep. Draw a card. There's nothing we can really draw here. Man. Unfortunate. They have to have a Mana Source here, right? Yep, alright. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's already not a good matchup, and I think we drew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of our 19 lands. Doesn't help the cause at all. That was Shadow versus Oops All Spells. Hope you enjoyed the match, and I'll see you back for round number 2 in just a bit. All right, we're back here for round number 2 with our Red-Black Shadow League. We'll go ahead and be on the play. These hands are just not doing it. I mean, we could Thoughtseize on turn 1, but we can't play Scourge on 2, and the 4th land. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, the way that I look at this hand is the 4th land is essentially a mulligan. And I think if you take away a land, most 6-card hands are better than Thoughtseize, Scourge, Bolt, 3 lands. So I'd rather just go to 6. And this hand's a lot better. Opponent kept 7 fairly quickly. We're going to keep and put back Mountain. Alright, we're going to bobble ourselves first. Bit of a nifty trick here that maybe we'll see. Okay, so Thoughtseize. So it's going to look really weird. How badly do I want that Thoughtseize? Because I could just go Blood Crypt, Bowmat Courier, no attacks. I mean, it is a nice card to have under the Bowmat Courier, I think, too. I really want to draw that Thoughtseize, though. I actually think it's better to just hold the Bowmat here. Just draw the Thoughtseize. And then we can bobble ourselves again, depending on what they're playing. Because we're going to go to 17, 15, 13 up the Thoughtseize. I guess we need another fetch land in order to Shadow on 2. If I draw a fetch land, then I can Thoughtseize Shadow. Depending on what they're playing, obviously. Ooh, I don't think I've seen this deck before. Bit of a spicy brew, maybe. One top, one bottom. And a bauble. We'll bauble ourself. It is a Tamer Battle Rage. That's an interesting one. So what we're going to do next turn most likely is Thoughtseize Bowmat. And then we Shadow on 3, potentially set up a TBR on 4. I mean, given the fact that we have a Shadow in hand, it's probably not the worst draw. Alright, I'll keep it. It's got some upside. I think, honestly, okay, I was thinking about it again. I think if they had Bobblebee before I drew this card, I might have shuffled it away because I didn't want them to know I have a TBR. But now I'll just Thoughtseize them. And this is actually going to work out really nice because I'm going to Thoughtseize Bowmat here, and then next turn I can Whisper, hit a land, and play Shadow. Okay. Interesting. It's a tough Thoughtseize. So it's a question of... I don't think I'm supposed to take Urza. I think I'm supposed to take one of their cheaper cards. And I think the Embry has more utility in a general sense than the Engineer. Also, the other thing is if I draw Fatal Push and don't draw a fetch land, I can't push the Embry, but I can push the Engineer. So I'm going to take Embry. I understand that Engineer lets them tutor for the Thopter Foundry. Maybe that's a reason to take it there. It's just more mana inefficient for them. It's a lot slower because they have to pay a mana for the Engineer and then 2 mana for the Foundry, and they don't even have a 3rd land right now. So I'm kind of surprised they bobbled when they did. So I assume they're going to fetch Shock and play an Engineer. And hopefully we draw a fetch land off of this Night's Whisper. Or just for our turn, obviously. That's not good. Although, we kind of have that covered with the Tamer Battle Rage. Whoops, sorry about that. Well, I can't play Death Shadow here, so I gotta cast Whisper. Hope we hit. We did hit, which is quite good. Play a Shadow, attack for 1. So next turn it's going to be an 8/8. So it's 16, 17. Maybe lethal, depending on what they do. I'm going to do this now. That should be lethal, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 22 minus 3 is 19. So I can just bolt myself. Yeah, that should do it. Unless I'm really, really bad at math. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 22 minus 3 is 19. Yeah, it should be fine. Oh, you know what I just realized? I messed up there. It didn't end up costing me, but I did mess up there. Because I only had 1 Blood Crypt left in my deck, and if I randomly milled it over from the Bowmat Courier, I actually would not have been able to kill them. So I definitely should have fetched before resolving the Bowmat trigger, because I only had 1 Shockland left in my deck. that was a mistake. Luckily, I didn't get punished, but definitely an error there. So, Rate of Gore does stop their combo. I think we have a lot of good cards for this matchup, inadvertently. Not that I was preparing for the Grixis Wurza deck. Huh. I guess on the other hand, we don't really have a lot of bad cards. Fatal Push being able to kill Urza, Engineer, and Emery. I think we want all of the Fatal Pushes in the Dismembers. We definitely want Kolaghan's Command. I definitely want the second one. Some number of these are considerations. I just don't really know what we're cutting here. This Kroxa can go. That can be a swap for the K command. That's fine. Honestly, I don't really see anything I want to cut here. I guess, you know what? Maybe we're supposed to cut Bomat Courier because both Engineer and Emery both are 1/2s, which kind of a little awkward when you're playing a 1-mana 1/1. So I guess I could see that. Also, these games are more about Shadow TBR than they are about grinding with Bomat Courier. So if I cut all 4 Bomats, these are all bad. We're going to bring in, assuming those are bad too, we're going to bring in some combination of 4 of these 8 cards. I still don't really think I want Kroxa. I think it's too slow. So, cause a controller to gain life. That player loses that much life instead. So for every Thopter they make, they have to pay 1 life. It's actually not even that good. It's essentially just pay a life, make a Thopter. It's still kind of the same thing. It's hard for me to beat without TBR. So maybe I don't want Rate of Gore. I do think I want Soul Guide, though, because it shuts off Emery and the combo. And then maybe just keep in a Kroxa. Yeah, I don't think Rate of Gore is where I want to be. Alright, game number 2. We're on the draw. We got a nice little 3-lander here. This hand is perfectly acceptable and decidedly medium. Not the best hand in the world, but... Excuse me. Alright. So we don't have a non-fetch land in our hand, so we can't really do the bobble trick. Because I am going to play a Swift Spear no matter what. What I think I might do is just... I'm going to cast Swift Spear and I'm going to cast the bobble. I might just not sacrifice it, depending. I might hold it for next turn, although I'm probably going to just end up playing Scourge no matter what, so... Almost certainly going to end up playing Scourge. So I might just cycle it anyways. Because essentially, in order for me to get value out of it, I have to wait 2 more turns. So yeah, I'm just gonna cycle it. Spire of Industry. Okay, it's a little scary, but we do have Kolaghan's Command. So we can make a 4/4 Scourge. Worst case scenario, that was a good draw. They can go land, sword, make 1 token, gain 1 life. And I'm just trying to see if they can kill my Scourge next turn just by activating this. They'd have to activate it 4 times because we're going to attack for 1 here. Seems unlikely. I think it's pretty safe to play Scourge here. Always got to keep that in the back of your mind, especially when you're playing against the Heliod deck, because they have access to Spike Feeder, which is essentially just a 3-mana gain 4. So spots like this example, you know, they're at 16, you play a Scourge, they can just play Spike Feeder, gain 4, and things can get really bad for you. Well, this is going to work out well for us. We're just going to deal 2 to the Engineer and blow up the Foundry. I guess they end up getting their sword back. Right? I might just attack first. And then after blocks I can do it. Yeah, I think I like that better. Yeah. I mean, I could play Whisper and Shadow this turn, but I don't think that's where I want to be. Let's just attack first. I imagine they're not going to block. I'm trying to think if I want to shock here. I think shocking is okay. Alright, so let's go destroy target artifact, 2 damage to any target. They're going to sack the Foundry to get back, to make a 1/1 which gets back the sword, which is why I did this after blockers, because otherwise they'd be able to put the 2/3 blocker on the Swift Spear, so I essentially got in 2 more damage. And they go to 12, we have an 8/8, and a decent spot. Especially with the backup call against command to prevent future combo shenanigans. Feed the Swarm. I don't think I've seen that one from them before. Interesting. And we're at 11. Alright, let's fire off a Night's Whisper. It's a little suspect if we don't find a land off of it, but which we did not. But we still get to attack with the Swift Spear because we're lucky and drew a bauble. So we can attack for 3 and play Shadow here. Worth noting, Shadow does not is out of Lightning Bolt range if they have that in their deck. I'm not sure if they do, but alright, 3 damage is good. We'll cast a Shadow. We'll pass. Take a look at their top card. It is another Thopter Foundry. Okay, so we play on. I still think we have enough tools and removal spells to be able to close this game out pretty easily. It shouldn't be too hard. All I really need is mana. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what is the best way to do this? Kill the Thopter Foundry, deal 2 to the Thopter. Could play Soul Guide Lantern first, which kind of forces their hand. Yeah, let's do that. They have to kind of respond to this and combo and just make the last 1/1. Because if they don't, if they let this resolve and then sack the sword after it resolves, I can just respond to the yeah, I think they messed up here. Exile the Thopter. Go ahead and it's not lethal either way. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7. I'm just trying to make sure we don't die to something random. Let's just do this. Let's go. Destroy target artifact, 2 damage. Do this first. I guess they can go to 9, and I only have 8 damage, so they don't actually have to block if they don't want to. I assume they will, but okay, that's fine. Kill the Thopter. They don't really have a double block, and now we have combo protection for future combo protection. Should be fine here. They're going to take 3 and go to 6. We should be able to clean this up with these removal spells pretty easily. I have to imagine it's pretty hard for them to get out of this. I stand corrected. Okay, we will exile their graveyard. Alright, go to 6. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I do think it is worth thought seizing them here, so I'll do that just to protect my Luris. I'm going to take the explosives because that's the one that can kill Luris. I'm just going to push this now, go to 2 and put Luris in my hand. Just going to get a basic mountain, obviously. I can't get a fetch. Or I can't get a shock, excuse me. Alright, I mean, I played this game pretty aggressively. Their last card is a Fatal Push. They have Lightning Bolt in their deck, then they have outs, but they also have a lot of good draws. Like they mentioned, they drew an Urza there. Like, we're not out of the woods. Alright, let's play Luris. Yeah, Death Shadow. Yeah, this is fine. Alright, your turn. So they can kill the Luris here, but they still have this problem. Maybe I'm supposed to lead them with explosives, but if I lead them with explosives, they can just play explosives on 3. I was hoping they wouldn't find a Revolt trigger, and they'd be forced to kill the Shadow, which means then I can attack with the Luris, gain 3 life, and then just play the Shadow again anyways. But now this gives them the option to kill Luris. Depending on... They targeted themselves, right? Yeah, they did. The reason they targeted themselves is to give them more information on what to Fatal Push, if anything at all. Okay. So that leads me to believe they think this... Because if they thought the game was going to go longer, they would... Well, I guess the Luris isn't lethal, so that just might means they have a brick on top. Okay, that's probably not going to be good enough. Because I can just kill it. Well, I can make it a 2/4. Okay, that's fine. Now I can just kill both their things. And play a Shadow, and then they have nothing left. Or they're actually just dead. 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Push this. Bolt this, attack for 6. Close game. They ended up drawing 2 pretty good spells, but the thing about the spells they drew is that they just didn't... they weren't removal spells, and they didn't gain them immediate value. They needed to untap with them, and just we had enough removal to kind of to close it out. That explosives kind of worried me for a second. Thought this game was going to slip out of our grasp. But ended up closing it out there. The 2 against commands obviously was huge, and just the amount of removal that we drew to make sure they didn't keep one of these in play, and everything worked out in the end. So hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you back in just a little bit for round number 3. And we're back here for round number 3 of our Red-Black Death Shadow League in Modern. We are on the draw. Go ahead and show our opponent Luris. And had a lot of 4-landers today. Opponent showed us a Yorion. Interesting. I mean, I think this hand's still okay. We have a nice little curve of creatures here. We do have to draw some spells, but maybe if they don't kill the Bowmat, we can recoup some cards that way. I think it is worth keeping, but... A lot of four-landers today. My guess would be Taxes. I think that's the most common Yorion deck that I've seen as of late, but still could be some sort of Uro deck. There's a lot of things it could be, obviously. Not Taxes. Birds of Paradise. Well, especially on a mold of 5, you know what they say. The age-old tale. Bolt the bird. And they don't play a second land. So we'll go ahead and decide which 2 1-drops we want to play. I think I'm just going to get these Bowmats going. Because there's a chance that we just go Swiss Beer Scourge next turn. And then on turn 4 we could potentially double crack these Bowmats. Like crack one, hold priority, crack the other one. They found a second land. Now they're just passing. Probably an Ice Fang. I think I'm down to make that trade, honestly, just given how many creatures I have. Normally I wouldn't want to make that trade, but it's kind of a backup Bowmat anyways. Like, I lose a little bit of value because I don't get to sack both of them next turn, but... Oh. Not an Ice Fang. So maybe they have... Now we're thinking Mana Leak or Path to Exile. I think I'm still just going to jam the Scourge. Although, yeah, if I jam Kroxa, I'm a card short, even if let it resolve. I have another fetch land, but I'm still a card short of getting it back next turn. And what I think I'd rather do is just discard the Kroxa to the Bowmat. It's some pretty good value there. So they had Ice Fang and chose not to trade with Bowmat. Interesting. Okay. Wonder why they would do that. Maybe they have some way to blink the Codal. Okay. Worth noting, the Ice Fang is still not turned on, so it does not have Death Touch. I'm going to play my land first. Not sure I want to fire off this Fatal Push, because they could have Ephemerate. Honestly, I think I'm okay with them trading again. I think I'm okay with this trade. Especially because if they're not blocking the Scourge, they're taking a lot of damage. So, and I just don't want to main phase this Fatal Push and get destroyed by an Ephemerate. It's one way to lose this game. Yeah, so they're just going to chump block. And they might cast Ephemerate anyways. Maybe this is... Not sure what this is. Maybe they don't want to defend their deck before they cast Ephemerate? Yeah. Alright, well, we got them good there. So now we can Fatal Push that. Okay, well, yeah. Game was kind of over at that point. We were going to play a Kroxa, hold up a Bowmat, sack, so... Opponent mulligan to 5, and our draw was very good. As far as sideboarding is concerned... Kind of in on these grindier cards. Wonder if I want Reign of Gore. Ephemerate, Ice Fang, probably a Soul Herder deck if I had to guess. Not really sure how much life gain they usually have. They probably have Uro in their deck, but I don't know if they have Omnath. Although they showed us Ketria Triome, so maybe they have Omnath as well. Kind of think we don't want these TBRs. And I probably want to cut some of my removal. I don't know if I want to cut all of it, though. Because it is nice to have removal spells against Ephemerate. We do still have bolts, but... Like, I could consider some number of these cards. Probably not all of them, but... Maybe we'll do, like, 2 Fatal Push... for 2 Soul Guide, and then see how that works. And then once we see more of their deck, we can reassess sideboarding. But I don't want to go too heavy on the Reign of Gore Soul Guide stuff, because it's not clear that either of those cards are even that good until we see more of their deck. This hand is a little awkward because we can't really cast this shadow. And the rest of our hand is kind of not worth that much. We have an expensive card here. A bolt, which I guess they showed us Birds of Paradise. Yeah, alright, I'll keep this hand. I wouldn't be surprised if they boarded out some of their birds, but... I certainly hope they play one in turn 1. Okay, that's good for us. So, if I draw Thoughtseize, 3, 5, 7, we still can't play a shadow. Still think I'd rather fetch here. Just kind of thin the deck, and also it's better if we draw a second fetch. Potentially get these shadows down quicker. I guess if we draw a second fetch, we can just crypt on 2, fetch on 3, but... Oh, there's the Thoughtseize. We may or may not get Veil of Summer here, but, I mean, kind of have to cast it. Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm going to take... I'm going to take one of the Eternal Witnesses, and then I'm just going to play Soul Guide Lantern. I'm going to target the Witness and then pass. If they draw a land for the second Witness, there's a decent chance I'll just sack this Lantern. Okay, so they can scry 2. That's fine. I can live with that. I'd like to draw a fetch land or a Thoughtseize. Some way to pay life. Perfect. They put 2 cards in the bottom, and we know their whole hand, so this is going well. Play some 3/3s. And then we have Lantern Cycle up, which is nice. I might even just let them get back this Noble Hierarch because I really just want to crack my Lantern. Yeah, still know their whole hand. Okay, well. I guess they messed up because they wanted to hold up Ephemerate there. Let's see what we were drawing. Yeah, I mean, I think we were still basically a lock to win that game anyways, because once we have the Kolaghan's command up, we just blow out any Ephemerate line they have. So, yeah, a bit of an unfortunate series of draws for our opponent, and matchups like this are usually pretty good. Decks that have mana creatures, because you just have infinite ways to blow up mana creatures, and you can usually present a pretty fast clock. We got fortunate to draw the Thoughtseize into the fetch to deploy these 3/3 shadows here, but... yeah, overall, pretty favorable matchups like this. Matchups like this are pretty good, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you back for round number 4. And we are back for round number 4 with our Red-Black Death Shadow League. We are on the draw. We will reveal our Luris and take a look at what we have. So this hand, I think, this hand's a pretty big trap. So there's a couple, there's several things that are wrong with this hand. First and foremost, we don't have a threat. That's the most obvious thing. So not having a threat is bad, which makes this Temur Battle Rage effectively already a mulligan anyways. And if we're playing against a control deck, we have essentially 4 blank pieces of cardboard, and we don't have any fetch lands to turn on our Death Shadows. So overall, I think that this is just a pretty clear mulligan. Opponent says I can't beat that deck. Alright, this one is a little bit better. Definitely keep this and ship the 3rd land. Let's see what we're up against. Temple of Enlightenment. Okay. Leads me to believe they're playing Ad Nauseam, if I had to guess. Put a card in the bottom. So against Ad Nauseam, what do we want to prioritize? Swift Spear or Bowmat? It's probably just Bomat. There's sort of some consideration to play Swift Spear first if we draw like a Thoughtseize, but even if we draw Thoughtseize, we can just go Swift Spear into Thoughtseize, so it's kind of ends up being the same thing. We don't really miss out on any damage, and there's a chance we want to sack this Bowman at some point, but we'll see. Yeah, it looks like Adnaz. Traditionally a pretty bad matchup. Alright, so they bottom with the Temple, casting Serum Visions. And they went top bottom. Yeah, that is not ideal. I'm wondering if I should cast this Lightning Bolt. I actually think I should. I think I need to just try and get cards out of my hand and maybe sack this Bomat, because my hand is not really offering me a whole lot now. Kind of just have to try and empty out my hand to sack this Bomat. It's not the most powerful turn 2, but... It's like a Phyrexian Unlife. Pentat Prism. Alright, well, if we draw land... Unfortunate. I say if we draw land, then we might have had a shot, but now we just kind of have to hope they can't kill us, which is very unlikely. I have to imagine we're dead here. That should be the kill. Angel's Grace ad nauseum. Okay. Alright, alright. So that means they either don't have Angel's Grace or ad nauseum. Did not draw a land, which is unfortunate. So let's attack. I think we should TBR here, because if we TBR, it puts them to 0, which means that we could potentially try and deal them 10 damage next turn. Say we draw like a Bauble and a Bolt or something, that would be 3, 6, 7, 10. So yeah, I think we should TBR here, because that puts them to exactly 0. I guess this is a little worse if they have Angel's Grace, because they get to go to 1. But this at least gives us a shot to maybe kill them next turn. They revealed Spoils of the Vaults. That should probably kill us, because they can Spoils for Adnaz, or just cast the Adnaz. And that'll do it. Alright, game number 2. Again, very bad matchup. Not one that I'm expecting to play against all that much, but... so we want Cleansing Wildfire, and that's about it. We do, I think we want this Kolaghan's Command too. We have enough bad cards. Dismember and Push are all very bad. So I guess we have to keep in these Croxas as just 2 mana Raven's Crime. And we have to keep in something, I guess a Lantern, because it draws a card. As you can see, I'm not very prepared for this matchup. There aren't that many people playing it, so it's just kind of one of those things that hope to dodge it. And we don't have any lands. Yeah, this hand's risky, but I mean, you kind of have to try and get lucky in this matchup. I'm going to ship the 3 mana card, given that we're on 1 land from now. I'm just going to go Swift Spear into Bauble to cycle, just to try and hit my land drops. Can't even Bauble them. feels bad, man. Alright, they bought him with that. No Lotus Bloom. It's at least something good. Ooh. Scourge is actually quite a good draw. Alright, let's attack them. Play a Scourge. Something to put a little bit more pressure on them. So. Let's see if they have a Pentad Prism. They don't. Okay, that's good. Good news. Because I can't bolt them, I'm gonna play Kroxa in the off chance that they want to discard a land, which would pump my Scourge. We'll do that before playing the Bomat to give them less information. They do discard a land, which is nice. And we're just gonna slam. Go to 6. Now they can play Phyrexian Unlife to not die next turn. Go to negative life. Okay. I mean, I will attack them. The question is, do I want to sack this Bomat? I think I'm going to play Shadow and just... Yeah, let's go ahead and sack the Bomat. Looking for, like, I guess land plus... I was going to say land plus Wildfire. Because I don't believe they play a basic Swamp. I think they only play basic Islands and Plains. And we just need to cut them off black for ad nauseam. Ooh, they don't even have the basic. That is really good for us. Okay. What are they spoilsing for? Not sure. Spoils for Pentad Prism. But now they, yeah, I was going to say, now they cast Pentad Prism and the Scourge is just lethal because they're at negative life. Because the way that Unlife works is that once you're at negative life, you only have to deal them 10 because it once they're at negative life, damage that's dealt to them is dealt through poison counters. So they don't lose the game for having 0 life, but then once they go to 0 life, we only have to deal them 10, which means that we have 10 in play. And it's definitely nice to know that they only have 1 basic land, so these Wildfires are even better than they normally would be. Alright, we'll go to game 3. Hope that we can have one of those draws again, because I do think this matchup is really bad. This is not one of those hands. Not aggressive enough, I don't think. This hand's also pretty bad. Especially if they start on Leyline, because we can't even bolt them to play Scourge on 2. I mean, in fairness, a lot of our hands are not great against Leyline, but this one specifically is... This one is especially bad. It just doesn't do anything if they have Leyline. I think I'm going to go to 5. At least this one has sort of a game plan. Can put back a land pretty safely. And then I think the Kroxa is the slowest card. Okay, they don't have Leyline, so I guess I wish I had kept the second hand. They do have Lotus Bloom. I'd like to draw any 1 mana card here. Even Lightning Bolt wouldn't be that bad because I can curve Bolt into Scourge, but obviously I'd prefer a 1-drop or a Thoughtseize. They went to 6. Yeah, they went to 6. Top. Alright, there's the Thoughtseize. There is some consideration to holding the Thoughtseize because they did put 2 cards on top, but given our hand, we kind of just have to jam it. I wonder if there's a chance they topped, assuming that they would have Prism. Because if you think about it, with this particular hand, you wouldn't necessarily want to top lands. You don't really need lands, right? Assuming that your Prism isn't getting interacted with. So it's possible that they topped with the Serum Vision in mind, that they thought that the Pinset Prism was going to be there. I think the most impactful card is Unlife, but I think that there's also a chance I take Prism and they just don't have another land. Less likely, but higher upside. So we're going to go with that. And obviously they have this, but this is a ways away. And all right, there's the city. There's our one Soul Guide Lantern. Well, I can't cast Scourge. It's actually kind of nice to cast the Wildfire here because, again, there's another card they put on top. And if they shuffle it away, that, might mess with their draw step. I mean, obviously I could cast Night's Whisper, but... it's actually kind of close as to which one to kill. Because obviously this one is limited use, but this one deals them damage, which means I might be able to play Scourge next turn. I think it's actually better to kill the Gemstone Mine for that reason. Oh, I guess they can just spoils into the card they topped. Right, that makes sense. But that's not their ideal use out of spoils, right? This basically just turns spoils into a cantrip as opposed to... Ooh, they kept the Spirit Guide. Alright. I guess they don't have another mana source for the Unlife. Okay, alright. So they have 2 cards. We don't know either of them. 1 card, we don't know what it is. Likely an Ad Nauseam at this point. Oh. And then what do? They bottomed with their Scry. I mean, we kind of have to assume that last card is an Ad Nauseam, so I think I'm supposed to just do this. The nice thing about Croxa is we can just flash it back next turn if we find a land. So, not the worst. Kind of embarrassed to play this Soul Guide Lantern, but, do what you gotta do. And now if we find a land, we actually have a pretty quick clock. This Croxa is gonna kind of clock them pretty quickly, and obviously they just win if they find Adnaz, but... It's not an Adnaz. Alright, we need a land here. It's not bad either. I'm debating if I want to... I think I just want to Bomat Scourge here. Or I could Night's Whisper, try and draw land to play Scourge. I think that's worse than Bomat Scourge. Alright. Kind of have to hope they brick for a little bit, but... I don't like our chances, but, Uh-oh, tapping mana, that's not good. Okay. Can live with that. Now I think it's worth casting Night's Whisper. It's a little greedy, but... Okay. We're at 7. So now we have to do some math here. How many turns are they going to get? Basically, we have to see if we can deal them quote-unquote lethal damage next turn. So they're taking 3 here and going to 13. Or, excuse me, 15. If we play Shadow, it's a 9/9. Yeah, and then, okay, yeah, so Shadow's just better here for sure. Shadow, for what it's worth, also lets us cycle the Soul Guide, which is not terrible. So they have 2 more draw steps. Alright, there's one. Got to fade for 1 more turn. Interesting. I'm trying to think if Temur Battle Rage is lethal. It's always some weird math with Scourge. So if we Battle Rage, no, it can't. There's no way it's lethal. Alright, what you got on top? Alright, well, that should be game anyway. City of Brass on top. I don't think that's going to cut it. Alright, somehow won this matchup. Not really sure how. Not really sure how. Our opponent got pretty unlucky. Had some unfortunate draw steps towards the end. Obviously, they kind of bricked off. But, I mean, that's just kind of the spot that we set ourselves up in, right? You know, we played the game in such a way where we tried to deny them as many resources as possible, resources that were relevant to the game. And, you know, eventually got them to a spot where they had 1 card. It was very clearly the Ad Nauseam. We got pretty lucky and drew the Kroxa to make them discard it. And then tried to, you know, just kind of closed out the game from there. So that's the recipe for success against Ad Nauseam, which I do think is a bad matchup, but you definitely can beat them, as you see here. So hope you enjoyed the match, and I will see you back for the 5th and final round, see if we can get that nice little sweet 4-1. All right, everybody, we're back here for our 5th and final round of our modern Red-Black Death Shadow League. I think it's the first die roll we won. I can't remember. Anyways, we'll go ahead and play first. Reveal our Luris companion, and let's get started, shall we? So we have Swift Spear and some Night's Whispers. Bit of a risky keep, but we are we're on the play, but we do have a bauble, so we essentially get 2 looks at a second land. It's a bit of a risky one, but I tend to favor keeping hands like this, really high upside. You know. I'd be way more in on this hand if I had a second 1-drop instead of maybe one of these Night's Whispers or Bolts, but, you know. I think this hand's still fine. Oh. That is not fine. I think this matchup is close to unwinnable. Well, we'll see. Especially with this hand. That is not going to get the job done, unfortunately. Alright, well. Here's where we're at. Bolt you. Taste it. Bobble you. Okay. Did they put the card on top or the bottom? Just want to see what they did with their scry. They bottoms, okay. Well, your move. Okay. Suspend Greater Gargadon. Okay. Well, this hand did not pan out. I still think the keep was fine. Obviously, this is one of the matchups where, you know, essentially all of these cards are these cards are all blanks, but you know, happens from time to time. I still think, given the option, I'd probably keep the hand again, but at least that's something. Maybe we can get something going. I mean, the issue is if they just have an As Foretold or a red source and an Electro Dominance, then they can just cast Balance here and blow up all of our lands, which is not good, obviously. And they topped, so it's probably a red source. Could be an As Foretold. Let's play Swiss Spear. I mean, we just kind of have to jam our cards and hope they have nothing. This is 4, 7, 8. They go to 3. Just debating if I want to play my 2 burn spells or if I want to cast Night's Whisper. I almost feel like casting Night's Whisper is a little bit better if they do end up balancing us, because it means we might be able to hit land drops for next turn. So let's do that. It's obviously less damage output this turn, but Force of Negation. Okay, that's fine. So they go to 9. Hopefully they can't do anything too busted this turn. That can't be good for us. Yeah. I imagine they're just going to balance here. Yeah, looks like they are. Well, Force of Negation into As Foretold was probably worst case scenario. So that's not good. Oh, I got choose 2 cards. Okay, so we choose the 2 that we want to keep. Good news is I have a bunch of bad cards to discard, so that's nice. They're at 7 and we have 5 damage in our hand. I mean, this Gargadon is on 5. Yeah, we're pretty toast at this point. I guess I'll take one more draw step. See if I draw a mana source. Okay, well, that'll be good enough for me. So sideboarding, I don't really have anything for this matchup. Again, we're playing against a lot of the weird one-off decks, not the popular like Heliod, Omnath Control, the Mirror Match, which is the decks that I'm prepared for. And, you know, Modern's a format where it's really hard to prepare for everything, especially these, you know, 1%er decks that you're rarely ever going to play against. That being said, these removal spells are pretty bad. I'd like to see if I can get them out of my deck. These cards at least have some sort of text. I'm pretty sure they have enough basic lands where I don't want Wildfire. Also, they have Greater Gargadon, which makes Wildfire a risky proposition. Soul Guy doesn't really do anything. I mean, Fatal Push does kill the Rhinos. I guess I'd rather keep 2 and 2. Because Dismember can also potentially tag a Gargadon. Like Dismember plus something else can tag a Gargadon. Alright, we'll do this and hope it works out. Kind of sort of similar to our last match where we just don't really have a lot of cards. Yeah, this hand's not going to do it. Okay. This hand is better. Definitely okay with this hand. And they went to 5. Are they just mulliganing to Leyline? Looks like they are. Mulligan to 3? I mean, at this point, even if they find Leyline, it's probably not going to be good enough. Okay, interesting. I guess we'll take that. They went to 2 cards and then conceded. So I assume they were just digging for Leyline. I don't really know what to make of that, but I guess I'll submit this for game 3. Alright, show you my Luris. And they mulliganed. I will join you. They went to 5. This hand I am going to keep. I'll put back Knight's Whisper. Let's see if they stay on 5 this time. It looks like they are. Did they finally find their ley line? No, they didn't find their ley line. Interesting. Alright, well they're on 5. I have to think about what we want to do on turn 1 here. So, I mean, really, there's only 2 options: Swift Spear or Thoughtseize. I think I would like to lead on Swift Spear. I only really get punished if they have Land Spirit Guide as foretold, because that's the card I really want to Thoughtseize. So I think leading on Swift Spear is fine. I'm going to cast the Baubles. I'm not sure if I'm going to crack them, though. Unclear how many, if any, I want to crack. I guess if they have a bolt, they're probably just going to bolt now. No, they don't have a bolt. Attack you for 3. Looks like they're getting Steam Vents most likely. Okay. I think I'll crack one of these baubles, see what they're drawing. Spire Bluff, okay. I think I'll probably just end up cracking this other bauble, because I am going to cast both of these spells next turn anyways. They went bottom top. And they still have Spire Bluff in their hand. Let's see what they topped. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. Alright, well, I guess let's fire off a Thoughtseize and hope that they only have one Cascade spell or one Suspend spell. I guess maybe they'll force this? That's not good for us, because now we can't even deploy the Shadow. What'd they pitch? They pitched As Foretold. Makes sense, because they have another one on top. Alright, Seal Fire. Attack for 3. So they're going to get to play As Foretold, which is scary. They have Rhinos as their last card. Yeah, that makes sense. How much damage can we afford to take here? I mean, they are Hellbent. If we fetch Shock and Knight's Whisper, we go to 9. Right? 11, 9, and we play a 4/4 Shadow. They attack with both. Guess I'd probably have to chump block. I think that's okay. Let's play Knight's Whisper. I'm going to play Knight's Whisper first, because if I draw a Shock land, I can take 1 less damage if I want to. Alright, well, that's not bad. That's probably going to kill them if they brick. And we'll say go. So, see, this is awkward. If we want to play around exactly Lightning Bolt off the top, we have to block with Death Shadow. Ooh, I like that. I also like that. So what do we want to play around? I mean, they had 1 fresh draw step. So I can fetch Shock, go to 6. Dismember, paying 2 life down to 4, and then TBR, that would be 18 minus 8 is 10, plus the Swift Spear. Or I could get basic land, pay 4 life. So that's 5. That also puts me to 4. And that would allow me to play a second Swift Spear. That's just better, right? Instead of shocking, I just pay an extra 2 life here, which lets me play a Swift Spear. That should end up being better. Alright, so I think before anything we should dismember one of the rhinos before we do anything else. Alright, looks like they're just letting that go. 9, 18, minus 4 is... yeah, that should be good. Alright, looks like we got there. It only took a mulligan to 3, or a mulligan to 2, and then a mulligan to 5 in one of our worst matchups. Yeah, nice little 4-1. Hope everybody enjoyed the matches. If you liked the video, go ahead and smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next time. Thanks again for tuning in.